Hello, welcome back to Zentangle Explore. If this is your first time here, I am so glad that you're joining me. This is a class where we draw one Zentangle pattern really, really slowly, and we explore it in the way that you want to explore it. So we're going to begin with a little breathing. But before that, you can gather, if you don't already have, a couple of pieces of paper that you can just hold in the palm of your hand. They can be any size, and you can grab a pen. I have a 01 Micron here. I have a Sharpie felt tip, but if you just have a ballpoint off your desk, that's perfect. And just a piece of copy paper, that's awesome. You don't need any fancy supplies for this class. So we're going to start with a little calming down and breathing, and then we will draw. So get nice and comfortable in your chair. You can close your eyes if you like. I'm going to close mine. Oh, we're just going to check in with our breath. Hello, breath. Welcome to this moment. Just bringing everything about you into stillness. Allowing your breath to move in the background. A gentle inhale and a little baby stop. A gentle exhale and a little baby stop. Allowing the breath to cycle with just gentle awareness and noticing. No need to change it. And if there's anything in your body that's calling to your attention, any tightness, anything that needs to be tweaked or moved, just send a little breath to that space. Hello, little elbow. I'm going to breathe into you and ask you to relax. Perhaps you can feel or notice where your breath is moving in your body. Perhaps there's a coolness at the edge of your nostrils. Maybe a little bit of an expansion in your back body. Perhaps you can feel your clothing moving against your skin. And perhaps as you're breathing, you can notice maybe a gentle heaviness in your seat or your feet, whatever's connecting you to, whatever's holding you. Just rest, fully rest, and that's into that space, knowing that you are held completely. That the chair is holding you, the floor is holding you, the building foundation is holding you, the very earth itself is holding you. And when you're ready, let's take a big inhale together. And a nice releasing, sighing exhale. Ha. Nice big inhale together. And exhale. Ho. Allowing that vibration of sound to be felt in your body. And one last big inhale together. And a sighing exhale. Ha. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes, knowing that whatever you're creating in your life and on the page is perfect just as it is. Okay, thank you for breathing. It's so helpful, especially when you want to slow down. Just bring all of yourself into one space. So I'm going to change my camera and we will draw. All right, so I have a couple different sizes of paper here. Um, the idea is that we draw on small pieces so that we can start a new one whenever we like. I'm going to start out with this elongated piece here. And this is a sweet little pattern that is um, pretty specific, but we're going to play with it in all kinds of ways. So you'll just need a pen. I have a 01 Micron here. And this class is all about exploring. So you get to explore this pattern however you want to explore it. So this is a pattern called Bowstring by Daniela Nielsen, who's a certified Zentangle teacher. And it starts, actually, I'm going to turn this way. It starts on, it's kind of a band tangle, which we don't usually draw in this class in this way because it's a band tangle and a grid tangle. So I'm going to draw it the way she drew it, and then we're going to really explore it in all kinds of different ways. So let's just start with a nice slow line. It doesn't need to be absolutely straight. You can see that mine is kind of wiggling along with the texture of the paper. We don't usually do it this way, but I'm going to do it this way. We're going to draw a couple of these just for fun today because one, drawing slow lines is really great. It's a good way to warm up and practice. You can tell that mine are not equidistant. That's okay. Just going to breathe, watch the line, and notice if any thoughts pop up about crooked lines or misplaced lines or misplaced lines or breaks in lines. Just breathe through that. It really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. This is a fully and completely an exploration. And so now we're going to put dots on these lines. We're going to do it really simply. Notice where those dots are. And we're going every other here on these strings. This is really a new thing for this class because we just draw the pattern and then explore it. And so it's just a little bit more. It's super fun to explore in a new way with you. So now on this center dot, we're going to come to the center dot and we're going to draw this little bow tie type shape. And it's almost like think of it as a little butterfly wing. And so in this class, we draw these patterns really slowly and then we explore really slowly. And in order to do that, we need to know what the components of the pattern are. We're going to put another little butterfly wing off the other side. And so far, we have a line, we have a dot, and then we have these two little fun little shapes, these little bow shapes, one on each side of the dot. And on the bottom, we're just going to connect and have this little triangle. It's almost, it can also be a little aura line that comes down. And it can have, here I have a sharp tip, there I have a rounded tip. And then we're going to add this to the top as well. Nice and slowly. And if you want to embellish this, you can add some little lines out of the center. And if you wanted to add any black, you could color in the black at the top here or at the bottom here. You could only have one on the bottom. The creator actually only put these little auras on the bottom, but Linda Farmer at Tangle Patterns drew them on the top, and I really like them. If you want to play around with some creative black, you can add a little weighting here into this fold. Daniela Nielsen, when she did hers, she kind of colored in what would be, she did her bows in a little bit different way, but colored in some of these spaces on the top. So now that we know what this does, a little bit bigger here for you. Now I get to play with it. So I can say, what do I want this pattern to look like? Because there are all kinds of different bows. If we're thinking about bows, in this class, we're really just thinking about slowly drawn shapes. So any one of these aspects of this or components of this can be embellished, can be made bigger or smaller, wider, thinner. You could aura the entire shape. And although I'm drawing them right now, along this grid pattern, they don't need to stay on the grid pattern. Which I'm going to show you in just a moment. So right now I'm just playing with all the different ways that I can draw this without changing really very much. Just the overall shape of these kind of bow-like wings. I'm going to turn my tile around and see what happens if I draw on the other side. Just coming back to your breath. One of the first things we learn how to draw when we're young are shapes. And all Zentangle is really is creating shapes, which create spaces, which give opportunities for fill. When we change those shapes, we can create new shapes, but still follow along with the essence of the pattern. So I still have this bow type pattern here, these little behind embellishments, top and bottom. I still have the line and the center dot. But you can tell from looking at what all of my different variations are that it's morphing and changing. And your variations, I'm hoping, are going to look very different from mine. Now I get to play with taking this out of this kind of grid pattern and allowing it to go free form. What if the line, the whole line, had more of a wiggle to it? If your lines are wiggling without intending for them to wiggle, I say yay, embrace it. What if this little bowstring loses its string and the bow goes off into space? And is no longer attached. So if anything's popping up into your mind and saying, well, what if I tried this? What if I made it triangle shaped? What if I made them diamond shaped? What if I played with orbs or circles? What if I have that dot in the middle be open instead of black? What if I draw from a different side of the page? What if all of my lines wiggle and start to look like bow tie pasta? What if one of these little wings is really, really big and misshapen? What if I add this little behind aura to all of these little shapes instead of just the top and the bottom? So many different ways to explore. What if that little, what was a black circle and then open circle turns into a big spiral button? What if you allow every line you draw to be the right line, regardless of whether or not it was the line you intended to draw? Wouldn't that be magical? When in reality, every line you draw is the right line because this is an exploration. And the whole point of exploring is to find new ways of doing things. And the only way to find new ways of doing things is to allow yourself to do new things. When we're always drawing what we expect, new things don't show up as often. And when they do, they cause frustration instead of joy and wonder. So I like to think about this class really as a kind of a drawing brainstorm class. You take this one pattern that gives you this really safe, guided structure. So Daniela Nielsen created this pattern, and now we're drawing it, but we can continue to draw it with not exactly the same way. Although, if you're feeling like drawing it the same way every time, that's totally great because it's super relaxing to be able to know exactly what you're drawing. And I completely applaud you for doing that if that's where you're at today. But if you want to explore in new ways, the idea is that we take this the loose parameters guide that she gave us by creating this pattern, and then we play with it in a brainstorm kind of way so that every idea that comes to you is a legitimate idea. And so that every line that goes on the page is just an example or an exploration of that new idea, which is going to be different than Daniela's, different than mine, different than anybody else in this class right now. Whether you're drawing on the replay or drawing here live with me now, I everyone's going to have a different interpretation. And when we can honor, sometimes it's easier to honor somebody else's interpretation more so than it's easier to honor our own. You look at somebody else's page and say, oh, that's amazing. I wouldn't have thought of that. I don't know how you thought of that. I couldn't even draw that. That just brings a lot of judgment to yourself. And it's a way of devaluing the uniqueness of what you've brought to the page. And so when we look at our drawing practice, as a brainstorm exploration, it releases all of that judgment, the need to get something right, and replaces it with the need to just have fun, which is lovely and freeing. So my friend and I knit, and I'll get myself into a knitting pattern, and I'll get to a point where I'm just frustrated with it, and I'll take it to her and I'll say, oh, this is making me crazy. This is like taking so long. It's really hard, whatever the complaints are, so many complaints. And she'll look at me and she'll say, Esther, do you enjoy knitting? Why are you doing this project? You're doing it because you love to knit. So pipe down and enjoy the knitting. And she's right. Every time she's right. It's nice to have a mirror to bring you back into a sense of perspective. About what it is that maybe you're finding difficult or frustrating in the moment. Okay, so you can keep, I could still put more of these on this page. A nice little. A nice little kind of multiple choice of different things that I'm trying out here. And as I say that, all of you collectively right now are inspiring me without even saying a word. I love that about this class. Inspiring me to continue to play with this space, even though it's becoming quite busy. So what if that little ball in the end is actually a little box? And if that little inner judge gets up and starts jumping up and down, you can say, all right, well, and it's possible that your exploration has gone so far that it doesn't even remotely resemble what we started with, but that's absolutely okay. But if it does, you can say, well, am I staying true to the idea of the pattern within my exploration? And I can look at what I'm doing and saying yes, because I still have a string, although we've already said you can release your little bowstring from the string. That's totally fine. But for this example, I still have a string. I still have this center connecting piece, which was a circle. It's now a rectangle. I still have these kind of bow type shapes, which they're no longer connected to each other, but there's still 4 of them. And I can still add these little background little side auras here, which I find really sweet. And so does it matter that the strings are not in some beautiful grid pattern anymore and they're kind of flying around all over the page? No, it really doesn't. Does it matter that the petals are all, or bows are all kind of wonky and crazy? No, it doesn't. Really small. Okay, I'm going to change the size of my paper. Move on to my Sharpie felt tip. And so what I love doing with these patterns is drawing them super, super big and super, super small, and exploring all the different ways and sizes and shapes. Really slowly. If you find your lines getting really fast, sometimes when I get excited about something I'm exploring, I really speed up my line. I have to remind myself to come back to my breath and slow down. Because when we slow down, we can actually hear what's happening in our inspiration and our intuition and what it's telling us. So I often find this if I'm running late, I have to really find something, if I think it's lost. We think of things as being lost, but they're not really lost. They know where they are. We just don't know where they are. And it's really hard to find them and to really be able to hear and tune in to where they might be when our brain is screaming at us and saying, "They're lost, you idiot. What have you done? We need to leave. This is ridiculous." And all the different ways, and all the different things our brain has to say. If we can just come back and remember that when we draw a line we don't want to draw, we don't jump up and down and start throwing our pen across the room and set our page on fire. You may want to, but it's really not conducive to drawing anything new, so I don't recommend it. Instead, you start a new piece if you like, or you just come back to your breath, slow down your lines, listen to your little inner intuition, your little inner artist, because we all have one, and say, what is the next best thing? What is it that I want to create next? And when your mind is quiet or quieter, you can tune into that inspiration so much easier than if your mind is imagining throwing things across the room. And so if you've drawn with me, you've been drawing with me for a while, we always have the opportunity to bring in other elements of other things that we've drawn, like auras and orbs, and there's all kinds of fun ways to explore. And just because we're exploring in this pattern right now doesn't mean that we've forgotten all the other ways that we've learned how to explore in the past. And so you can use those ways because this is your exploration. This isn't my exploration. I'm simply inviting you into the process and providing the space and the time to slow down and breathe and draw in the way that you want to draw. Every one of these classes has live students on the other side. And at the end of class, we end the recording and then we share what we've drawn. And I'm always amazed because even if on a day where I think, oh, I just don't know how to explore this pattern in new ways, I think I've really like exhausted it, which is absolutely 100% not true. There's always new ways to explore every pattern. I've drawn with students, hundreds of students, for over 10 years. And even the very basic beginning tangle pattern that I've drawn so many times in introductory lessons, there's always somebody that comes to class, you're 12 or 13, that draws it in a new way that I've never imagined and never seen anybody else draw it that way before. And it's not because they're like fantastically experienced artists, they're just tuning into their own intuition. But that intuition is telling them to draw in a way that I've never seen, which is so inspiring to me. And it makes teaching that introductory tile exciting because I never know what new students are going to bring to it. It's really, really fun. And so when you can approach your own drawing from that perspective of knowing that every single time you come to the page, there's a possibility for something brand new, like truly brand new, to come into your awareness. Sometimes it's something about the drawing, and sometimes it's a thought about maybe where those lost keys are. But the point is that when we allow our brain, we give ourselves the opportunity to slow down and come into stillness in that quiet space where there's all the noise from the outside world and all the noise from what your sister thinks of you, your spouse thinks of you, your best friend thinks of you, what the shiny glossy magazine is shouting at you at the grocery store, maybe what the news is saying. All of that noise just fades into the background. We allow ourselves to come into stillness, into kind of this moving meditation practice, where the only thing that's important is what's going to be the next line and what shape it's going to take, and whether or not I'm going to allow myself to enjoy it. And giving yourself permission to slow down and be exactly who you are, releasing all of those expectations of all of those people, and especially those expectations that we put on ourselves. Saying it's okay to just be me, to just be you in this moment. Maybe you're feeling chaotic inside because of personal things that are going on in your life. Maybe you're grieving. So many people are grieving. Maybe you're lonely. Maybe it's okay to just be that. And know that in this moment, nobody's judging you. In order to have nobody judge you, we need to release the judgment that we're bringing to whatever situation it is that we're experiencing. Sometimes it's harder than releasing other people's judgment, but it's so worthwhile. It's so restful. It's okay to be a mess sometimes. Because we just allow ourselves to be who we are. That's when new inspiration floats in from out of nowhere. It just appears. It's the magic of allowing grace into our lives, knowing that we don't have to do everything all the time, that we're supported in the unseen, in magical ways. And all of a sudden you're having a conversation on the phone and that person says something and it just tickles a little thought in your brain and says, oh my gosh, you just helped me find my keys. Amazing. Think about the number of times those things actually do happen in your life. It's really astounding. It happens to me all the time. And I find that when I notice when it's happening, it happens more often in ways for me to notice easier. And then everything becomes more magical. It actually did happen to me. I was having a conversation with my father on the phone, and my husband and I had forgotten the computer password for a computer that my nephew gave us. And we went on a trip, and it was a really easy password, but it was so easy and so specific to both of us that both of us forgot it. So I took it off to Best Buy, tried to have him hack into it. Best Buy guy couldn't do it. He said it was going to be $40 or something to get the whole thing fixed. I was really aggravated about the entire experience. I get really aggravated about tech that doesn't work. It's one of my, if you want to call it a weak spot, it's something that I need to maybe become a little bit more relaxed about. Anyway, I was talking to my dad about it. My husband was in the other room. And all of a sudden, because my dad and I were having this conversation, but my husband was only not obviously involved in the conversation, but loosely listening to it. And that moment of stillness, the password popped into his head, and he went to the computer, turned it on, and it worked. And it saved us additional aggravation. And now we know what the password is. And then we both laughed because it was literally so specific to the two of us that we wouldn't have thought of it on our own again. So these things happen all the time. And when we start to notice them, become grateful for them, and then even talk about them, it invites in more noticing and more slowing down and more magic into our lives. It's really fun. And it's a really great way to play with things in our lives that maybe are frustrating, but now they don't have to be frustrating anymore because you have this secret tool, this tool of calming down your nervous system by drawing really slow lines, creating something unexpected on the page, and allowing your brain to rest from the craze outside, rest from the noise and the media, rest from your own expectations or your family's expectations. Say the only thing that matters is that I have a pen and I can draw a line. And any line I draw is the absolutely right line, the perfect line for this moment. I have a student, and I may have told this story before, but I have a student who drew with me for many, many years. And she used to say, what I love about coming to this class, whatever Zentangle class it was, I was teaching in community at the time, said, I love about coming to this class is that it's the only space in my life where everything I do is right. And our practice here in this class can be just like that. We're absolutely everything we do, every line we draw is right because every single one is an exploration, a drawing brainstorm for what's possible, releasing the expectations around what we think we should be drawing is the only way to allow that possibility to flow onto the page. Calming down our minds is the only way to hear that still, silent, small voice within us that says, hey, what if we did this? That would be really fun. What if we start drawing with a red pen instead of a black pen? What if we get out our colored pencils and color this creation? What if we allow what we're drawing to be perfect exactly as it is? That would be amazing. And that would feel fantastic. And what if we decide inside ourselves that no matter what anybody else has to say about what we've drawn, we think it's fantastic. And we enjoyed doing it. And so we are going to bring value to that experience and to the outcome, even if it's wonky and crazy, even if it doesn't look anything like the pattern where when we began, even if our brain is telling us that there's so many things wrong with it, but our inner artist is saying, yay, let's keep playing. Let's draw more. Let's explore in wild and wonderful and woolly ways. There's an endless, endless, endless number of ways to draw lines. Just like the notes or the alphabet creates all these different languages and the notes create all this different music, the lines are the same. So many different ways to use them to express ourselves. We bring value to that expression, bring value to ourselves, and each one of us is valuable. Each one of us is absolutely unique, just like snowflakes. And so value the messy times, even value the frustrating times. Everything brings us into a new level of learning about ourselves, about our preferences, about how we like to do things in the world. And it's really magical. So these are my explorations. Today, you can see they really changed and morphed and went all over the place. Oh, all right. Change my camera. Hi, welcome back. So exciting to draw and explore this pattern with you. Thank you so much for coming and playing. My camera focus is a little wacky. So if you would like to donate to these classes, you can do so at paypal.me/eternalpossibility. There we go. And you can find my other classes at eternalpossibility.com. And you can play with this pattern all week long. And maybe one day, every day for the next week, you can find a new way or new inspiration to play with this pattern. You can put it on envelopes. You can put it in a little embellishment like birthday cards. You can write little notes to your kids and add the tangle that you're working on that week. Super fun. You can leave little love notes for your spouse. You can leave it in library books or on the bus or cafes. Leave a little piece of art. I like drawing on my credit card slips for restaurants. And then I draw a little doodle on the credit card slip. I know that it's going to get thrown away or filed or whatever they're going to do with it, but it doesn't matter because maybe in that one moment, if that person sees it and they needed a little lift, they're going to be like, oh, surprise art, that's fantastic. Just like the mailman, you put it in an envelope and it goes and so many people see it. So many people see it before it gets to its destination. Super fun. All right. Thanks for drawing with me. And I hope that you keep creating.